One, go. How's it going, everyone? Before here, welcome to Heliopolis Radio. Today, we've been fortunate to be joined by Domenic Pappas, author of Garbage Day. He's here to share a bit about the book, also his goal in actually bringing awareness to climate change and some of its implications, and also telling us a bit about himself, obviously. So, without further ado, I hand it over to you, Domenic. Tell us about yourself. What is it that you love to do?
Well, right now I just finished graduating from the Applied Academy of Pharmaceutical Science. They were the first um, school in Canada to have a cannabis program.
Nice.
So I've been working in like a lot of medical cannabis grows. And as you can imagine, I've been sampling the product a little bit here and there. And this all happened back around COVID. So, I always had the creative mind to write a book. And I had the access to many, many quantities of cannabis. And the two finally combined during COVID lockdown. I just decided I'm going to write something. I have all the time in the world. We had all the time in the world. So I just buckled down and I wrote a story about the climate. It was something that kind of happened to me in my real life. So it was easy to kind of draw inspiration from that. But yeah, that's how it all really started for me, writing at least. Yeah.
And just bring it back to climate change. Obviously, without maybe with what you're willing to share, when did it become an important subject matter in your life? And what are your thoughts on the current state of like what are the weather conditions that are affecting the planet? Obviously, thank God I'm not your side. I saw there's extreme cold and snowstorm warnings. I'm glad I left that behind a couple of years
Yeah.
ago, but maybe if we
Yeah.
should start with that.
Yeah. The East Coast is definitely way worse. The West Coast is still relatively under control. But no, so in terms of the weather, like my sister used to live in LA and we would drive there once every year or so. And you'd just be driving past the mountains and they would all be on fire. And it
Mm,
was like, yeah, there was fire department there and they were putting out the fires and whatnot. But it was just like it was such a normal thing that for not for me to see that I was like, what's happening here? Like it's apocalyptic.
mm,
And you just talk to other people in LA. They're like, oh, that happens every year. Yeah, yeah. It was just the city just sets on fire in the summer. It's too hot.
mm,
And it's like, what are you guys doing to change that? Nothing. LA is a bit of an extreme example because they do have a lot of brilliant people, but for the most part, it's like a materialistic city. So
mm.
they're more concerned with like fashion and those types of areas. And when you consider fashion in the whole scope of climate, um, that's probably one of the main polluters is like fast fashion,
Mm,
just like the manufacturing industry. And um, yeah, there's just it's such a broad spectrum of different times that I've been like, that's not okay.
mm,
And that was really one of the first times that I was like almost involved in the situation. Because I could tell you, okay, sure, they're chopping down the Amazon to
mm,
grow feed for our growing meat industry, because apparently we need more meat in North America. But like I've never been there. I don't really know what it's
mm,
like. I've just seen videos, photos, documentaries, whatever. And it's just like every time I open the garbage can and I throw something away, and then it's like, yeah, throw it away. And it's like, but it's not away. It's just like we're displacing it, we just can't see it.
mm,
And yeah, so that I guess the time I drove to LA and I saw that, I was like, oh, like this is regular, you
mm.
know? I,
A-
I it was mind blowing.
And I was going to ask, do you think, because I agree with you, we have these small epiphanies or realizations when we actually kind of think about the implications of things. And do you feel that with human society today is kind of underestimated nature's potential to overhaul our way of living to a point that, maybe if it respected it a lot more, we wouldn't end up in maybe a tricky situation. further down the road. I'm not being apocalyptic or prophetic or anything like that, but do you feel like as a society we really are oblivious to the power of nature to a certain degree?
I don't think as a whole that we're blind to it because there's a huge amount of people that are like, hey, this is a problem. And I remember in grade seven when the movie An Inconvenient Truth came out, it was like the Al Gore documentary talking about how
Mm,
the world's heating up. My teacher showed us that, and then he showed us a counter movie that was like, oh, it's just a phase. It's just every look at the Ice Age, that was just a phase, and blah blah blah. And like, sure, that's fair. You want to play both sides, but this is like factually been happening for long enough now, and we've been given enough warning, and
mm,
like even still, there's not enough action being taken. So, like ultimately, nature will win. You know, if
mm,
human versus any of the elements is going to lose, we're not superheroes. We're not punching through rocks. We're not walking through fire and living.
mm,
We're not swimming across the ocean. We don't have gills, and it's like to me. I don't know why I've always had this weird fascination with wind is it's like it's this
mm.
invisible and the way that there's like for example the movie Twisters just came out and that's the Oklahoma something about Oklahoma's Twisters in Oklahoma's people follow them and it's kind of like a party but it's like
Oh, the people
they're
that
like
storm chasers, right? I think they
yeah,
talk
storm
like
chasers. They're like tailgating hurricanes and stuff. And it's like, sure, that's like fun and all, but think about how messed up it is. It's like it's not a football game against like a rival city. It's like the planet is tearing down your community and your
mm.
home. And you're like, yeah. So it's like that's too normal
Yeah,
and it's
no,
scary.
it is weird. It is weird how yeah, humans we do weird things. I guess I was gonna ask because there are two types of climate activists I've noticed. Just like in any type of initiative, right? You get extremists, and I was gonna say, what are your thoughts on extreme climate activists? Like I've seen in people in France defacing artwork and inconveniencing society. Like I do respect everyone has a goal and a mission and a message, but do you feel sometimes people take advantage of the hype behind something to act a fool in a way? Do you agree with some of the extreme acts of destruction and disruption that people are doing for a good cause?
Yeah. No, I know what you mean. I've seen those videos, people gluing their hands to paint, whatever. And it's like, at first glance, you're like, wow, that is a very stupid idea. Like, how is gluing my hand to a Picasso painting
Mm,
lowering the temperature? And it's like, as dumb as it is, people watch it. And as soon as you brought it up, I remembered it. So
mm,
it's more like, hey, you did something criminal, by the way. And like, you harnessed this massive crowd of people, but then it's like, okay, the eyes are on you. It's like, now what do you want to do? And
mm,
then nothing happens. And it's like, that happens so many times. Like, for instance, in Vancouver, we had like a climate march and we shut
mm,
down the major bridges. And there was like tens of thousands of people just walking down Vancouver. And a part of it felt like it was just high school kids getting a day off from school to go
mm,
march. But another part of it was like, okay, like people are clearly out here for this purpose.
mm,
And literally the whole of Vancouver was gridlocked. And we had all this, all the eyes were on us. And nothing happened because nobody was like, okay, let's leverage the
mm,
amount of eyes on us. It's like nobody, hey, I'm gonna protest, but like, sure, you can protest. What's your plan when people are looking at you? You can say, let's lower temperatures, but what are you gonna like do to cement that in their face? What are you gonna be like, okay, government, come in right now, and we're gonna write this law that says, you can only use a car for 20 kilometers a day. I don't know. Something
mm,
random. Like making it actionable. And that's
mm,
not what's happening. People are just kind of making a fool out of themselves
mm.
in a way like you said, oh, I just glued my hand to a painting. And it was like if you did that and then you went on to like solve world hunger, you'd be a legend. But now you're just an idiot. And
Yeah, it is. It is. It
I
is. It
think
is.
activism is tough because, like, if you really want to solve a problem, you gotta die for the issue. So, like, how many people are dying in the world for issues that, like, are pretty serious?
That is true. That actually is true. Most people. Yeah, there's a certain fine line that people won't cross. And I was gonna ask, how do you feel about what's that girl's name? It's Greta, right? I think it's Greta.
Greta.
How do you feel about how she's gone about it? I know in Africa, the whole electric car initiative, ironically enough, as good as it wasn't well received at this side simply because of the cobalt mining that happens in Africa and the exploiting that happens specifically
Mm.
by lithium battery ion manufacturers. So the conditions for the batteries that are used in some of the Teslas and now China have their own emerging electric market. So people felt like it was a double standard that yes, you're trying to eliminate CO2 emissions, but at what expense type thing. Like you build a society on top of very false foundations type thing. So I don't
Yeah.
know. It's a bit of a controversial take on it, but again, it's always just interesting to hear different people's opinions, particularly you being based in a Western society, which is fortunate enough maybe not to bear witness to some of the realities down this side. I'm just wondering what your perspective on that type of matter is.
Yeah. Well, it's always tough because if one person says one thing,
Mm,
they're obviously not going to realize the scope of everything. So it's like, let's use starting a business as an example. Like I have a business, I sell paint oil. And the very first time I bought a bottle and put the oil in the bottle, it was like the ball that you rub on your shoulder, or whatever, it was too big
mm,
and it leaked through it. And the branding was horrible.
mm,
And the bottle was like it was too heavy in people's pockets. And it was
mm,
just like I hadn't thought of any of that. But from that first step, I was like,
mm,
okay, something again, it's like step one, let's make it actionable. So it's actionable. And then step two is like let's actually make it better.
mm,
And in the same way that you would refine a product and you would refine the marketing efforts to actually like get it in front of people's eyes, is the same way that you should work on that. So I don't know the specifics of her plan,
mm,
but like it's a starting point. What are the problems? Let's fix them. It's
mm,
like that's kind of how everything is. It's like, okay, this is happening. What's the problem? Okay. Usually people get so shocked at the issue, they're like, oh my God. But the next question is, okay, how do you solve it? And then
mm,
just once you get to that, then you do it, and then the problem
mm.
gets solved. Should at
So
least.
you feel definitely the goal is still viable, but the production process behind it definitely should be revised. Probably more as a for like a forefront issue type thing. Like if we're gonna get people driving electrically, let's look after the people that are actually getting us the material to live this lifestyle that we want type thing. If I'm getting the message
Yeah,
correct.
if that's the problem, like the sustainability of the worker, then we're
Mm,
just going back to like the slave time, and it's like that's not sustainable.
mm,
So clearly, there's a lot of money going through the industry,
mm,
and I know that there's corruption here and there. So, I mean, that's another thing. When are we going to get rid of that? Because
mm,
corruption is usually um, a driving factor in a lack of change.
mm,
And so obviously oil industries are like have a strong hold on many, I don't want to say bylaws, but you know what I mean, many
mm.
things that are already in place in society. And
The
we got to
cartels,
put,
as they call them, the oil cartels. That's what
yeah,
my friend
I mean,
refers to them.
that's a
Um,
good word to describe it.
and so I guess sorry, just to build on that, what inspired you to write your first book, and what was kind of the main idea that went behind into writing? Obviously, you mentioned the creation of the Garbage Man kind of came in a time which was convenient, but were there any other elements that went into actually bringing the book to life and getting the character and the stories together?
Yeah, the characters was kind of something of like, I feel like every character is a version of myself. And so it was a lot easier to sort of create a character from something that I already know.
Mm,
But the vision was mainly that I'd always wanted to write something, and everyone's that I've researched is like, you have to write what people want to read, as opposed to write what you want to write. And that
Mm,
makes sense, obviously. It's like, okay, what issues are hot in the world? Let's give people content to absorb those issues. Um, and the day that I was driving, basically the main event was I was driving. I pretty much got into a fight with a garbage truck driver, and he was like blocking traffic both ways. I was trying to help him out. He didn't want to move. There was 50 cars honking, and like just one word led to another, and there's basically a fight. And I was like, all right, I'm out of here. And I had this like epiphany, like I've never had a good experience with a garbage driver. And when I started talking to people about it, I was like, hey, have you ever been behind a garbage truck and something good happened? And they're like, no, they're slow, they're loud, they pollute, there's black smoke coming out the back, there's garbage falling off, they stink. And it's like, I
uh,
was like, okay, so like we don't hate garbage workers, but we just like hate the idea of a garbage truck in front of us. So I was like, let's harness that emotion and let's apply it to like a city where everyone has that emotion and they're kind of gullible to be for the media to say one thing and for them to take it in and be like, yeah, that's the problem.
mm,
And so I don't want this to come off as like anti-garbage because they're not the people at fault. They're cleaning
mm,
up our mess.
mm,
So the irony is like we're getting mad at them for cleaning our mess.
mm.
And if we didn't make that mess, there wouldn't be a garbage truck in front of you slowing you down, smelling or whatever, you know?
And I found it interesting reading the premise of the book. I was gonna ask, was there a specific reason you tried the Waterfall Garbage Company to a criminal background? Do you feel, in a way, that's a subtle, not hint or message, but do you feel that there's a criminal element to a lot of the waste collection services, not just in general, but waste disposal, that we have
Yeah,
in today's society?
that was intentional.
That was intentional. Okay.
It was more along the lines of like anytime you watch like a Mark Wahlberg movie and he's like, yeah, I work at gas station. It's like, yeah, we know what that means. You're mafia or whatever. And I have a godfather
Yeah.
and the way that he acts is like he's this big guy from Greece and like he just acts like a mob boss. He's not. But he's just like a funny dude and it's and like I've always watched mafia movies growing up. I'm a quarter Italian, so like Italian in our blood. And we just like that whole mafia vibe of like the Joe Pesci and Robert De Niro. They're
yeah.
good movies, but I see a lot of humor in them and like just how crazy they are.
Mm,
So I just always thought like I just always wanted to have that character in what I do. Like I'm low key inspired by the mafia because they are actually like what they do
mm,
is commendable. Like they are here to be like, you know what? The government's messing with us. They hired the Italians to build America and then they want us to pay taxes. You know, we're doing it to them. And it's like, you know what? That's actually inspiring. Maybe don't kill everyone. Like, you know, maybe find them out. But that's not what their true goal is. So I just always thought mafia characters had a lot of humor, even though I don't think they're supposed to be taken that way.
And I like the creative spin that you took on it because you read a lot of story premises, and obviously people always look for a bit of like intensity to it, but there is the whole premise of people versus a corporate entity and who budgets at the end type thing. I like that dynamic. Like when all the chips are down and everything, like who's gonna give way? What's gonna be the straw
Yeah.
that breaks the camel's back type thing. And so I think that's really kind of interestingly a reflection of where our society is right now. I mean, we're talking about all these issues that are now apparent, a lot of them climate related. Who's going to compromise who? Who's going to give up on corporate greed or versus human interests? I feel like our society is at kind of that pinnacle point now where it's like a tug of war and who's going to pull who over.
Yeah,
And
and that's kind of like what I was going for is I was I'm not making fun of society, but I'm kind of like taking a shot at how we just like accept what's given to us. And how we're like so quick to act on things. And like, for example, like you said, corporate America during COVID, that was like the largest uh, financial transfer of wealth ever
Mm,
occurred.
for
So
sure, for
it
sure.
was one of those things where it was like, it's kind of happening as I was writing it.
Mm.
And so I also wanted it to be humorous. So I thought it would be more funny if I just created a city of gullible people that are like gonna blindly do whatever they think is right, even though it makes no sense.
Yeah, COVID was a very, very, very controversial time. And I know they just recently passed those digital laws in Canada. I don't know what it was for misinformation or anything like that. So probably can't go
Yeah,
too much.
we can't
Can't.
even get I think it's the Vancouver Sun. We can't even
Mm,
get the Vancouver Sun on Instagram. Like that doesn't even make sense. What are they reporting? Nothing. You go to Al Jazeera and it's like hurricane kills 6,000 people. You go to the Vancouver Sun and it's like boat tips over in the ocean. Like it's not even news.
crazy times we're living in, I tell you. Crazy, crazy times. And are there any other projects you have in the work currently that you're looking towards maybe bringing out in the near future?
Yeah, I am working on a sequel. I did also write another story during COVID. Um, it's kind of random. Like I said, there was a lot of access to cannabis, and so again, though, it was a similar like I'm going to accept what I'm being told type of story, and it just in like an untraditional world, I guess you could say.
Mm,
Um, I can't really speak too much on that because it's not finished. It's more of like a very structured idea without an ending.
without an ending.
But I think that'll drop. I'll have the sequel, and then I'll work on that one. And you know, I would like to make a short film by the end of the year, so we'll see.
Wow, man. Big things, man. And I love creativity. I think I truly respect creators because the lifestyle that creators live, a lot of people don't understand kind of the sacrifice that goes in behind it because you're moving away from the conventional stream. You're feeding your passion versus the glory, which is a
Mhm.
difficult transition. So people don't get it. But fortunately, I guess we're on different spectrums, but we're on a similar path on that in that matter. So I mean, wishing you all the best with that process, and I'm hoping that you materialize it, obviously, and that you manage to get it going. I guess the full like moving into a different dynamic of this. Obviously, I did read your bio, and there were a few interesting things that stuck out to me. And obviously, you've not had an easy road in life. Obviously, what you're willing to disclose, not disclose, 100% fine with me. Um, but I guess the question I was going to ask are, what are some of the lessons that you've learned through some of the adversities that you faced? Yeah, that's all. Yeah, that'll do.
Yeah, in the words of Sylvester Stallone, keep punching, basically. It's like I used to box when I was in like grade 7 and 8 or something like that. Not very seriously. I just did it with my friend. We just decided to do it. And I remember like the first time I fought a bunch of people, they obviously kicked my ass. And then I was like, oh, what the hell are we doing here? But then eventually, like, you get backed into a corner and you're like, oh, the only way out of the corner is like throw a hook, like
Hmm.
throw a punch. And like a lot in life is kind of like as I'm getting backed into the corner, the only way out of this is like the Mexican style of boxing, like keep moving forward. Do not move backwards. Move forward and punch. And another thing to build off of that was like, you're not going to enter a fight and knock the person out in one punch and feel no pain. You know, it's like you're not
Hmm.
Captain America. Like
Hmm.
one time I was trying to walk up my staircase and my ACL was torn.
Shush.
And in my head, I was like, Captain America, like just fucking get upstairs, man. And then as soon as I put pressure on that leg, I just buckled. Like I just
Hmm.
fell over. And I was like, oh yeah, like, no, that's a movie. That's actually not how the human body works.
Hmm.
So um like when something's coming at you,
Hmm.
you need to fight it or it will win, as easy as that sounds. And like, don't expect to just win this fight without getting
Hmm.
punched in the head. Or like, if you punch
Hmm.
someone in the head, your hand is going to hurt. So
Hmm.
it's just like, it kind of life is a street fight, I guess. Maybe is what I'm getting at. I'd never thought that before. I just kind of put it together right now. But like, yeah, just got to scrap it out.
I love it. I love the advice. And I guess kind of maybe, I know for time's sake, so kind of concluding with it, how do people reach out to you, firstly? Do you have like a creative Facebook group? I know the authors that I have interviewed, a lot of them have Facebook groups that they have and people interact with them, their material. Is that something that you have or something that you want to start going or start doing? Wondering what's...
Yeah, I haven't. Obviously, all the people on YouTube, whatever, this is how to market, blah, blah. Just could start on Facebook groups. I just have like my Instagram, which is Dominic Pappas author. Um, and like I am part of a writers group, but we're not really like this public entity. It's just a few of us. We get together. Um, my email is dominicpappaswriter@gmail.com. Basically, Dominic Pappas Writer. Search that
Awesome.
and you will find me.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. No, I guess the last question I answer, what are your words of advice and wisdom for those tuning in today?
Keep punching. Like, yeah, good days and bad days. Ultimately, if you know what you want to do, just do that. Because when the doctor comes and is like, it's not looking good, what's the first thing you're going to think of? And I guarantee you, what you think the first thing you're going to think of is not the first thing you're going to think of. For in my position, it was like, hey, you probably got like 12 months to live. And then I was like, shit, I never went to Italy. And then I was like, okay, when I get over this, I'm going to Italy. And that sparked so many other
Uh,
things. Like I'm not going to deep dive into it, but like, it's like you can't just work and go home.
yeah.
You have to find the medium of like what you're doing. And this might be negative, but I'm Greek and Italian, and we're very negative people. We can be. In my opinion, like there is no purpose. So like you weren't put on this planet to sell 3D printed teapots on Etsy, or sell dog leashes. It's like we are animals, humans and bears. We're all part of the animal kingdom. We just have infrastructure. And
Mm,
so like the animal kingdom exists and then they die. And then at the end of the day, the world keeps spinning.
mm,
And to top it off on the climate note, we're the ones setting the world on fire, not the bears and the eagles and the cheetahs, whatever.
mm.
So, yeah,
No, love it,
to go on
man.
tangents, and I think I just went on one.
No, no, love it, man. Truly heartfelt words and very sincere. Um, and it's actually been an absolute pleasure. I know it was relatively short, but we try to keep it that way because everyone's attention span these days. It doesn't really last past 30 minutes or so. So I've tried to keep time on rest. But no, Dominic, wishing you the best as you continue your creative journey, as you continue to share your story and hopefully encourage and inspire others to take action in their own lives and pursue their passions and interests. And obviously, it'd be great to keep in touch. And
Mhm.
if there's anyone that tuned in, sorry, my little brother was there. This is waving to. Yeah, if there's anyone that feels the need to reach out to Dominic, guys, please don't hesitate. That's the reason this podcast exists, is to give everyone that comes on an open platform for them to share their stories. So, Dominic, it's been an absolute pleasure, and thank you.
Thank you. I just looked at the time, realized we were talking for an hour, and didn't feel that way. So, good job.